Hey guys, welcome back. This is Library of Orthanc, LOTR TCG, and welcome back to part 2 of our 216 card expanded monstrosity discard deck. So today we are looking at the shadow side. Definitely make sure to check out the Free People's side for the introduction of this deck and how it works and so forth. Now, as you may recall, it's an expanded deck and it is a discard theme deck. So today we're going to look at the shadow side, which will be featuring our Nazgul, including this beautiful Witch King, Morgul King that you see here. And again, just to refresh you guys on this, this is our deck here. So this is an absolute absurd sized monstrosity here. And today we're just going to be looking at the shadow half of that. So this right here, you know, what looks like a very large deck on its own, but that is just half of the deck. So first off, we're going to have here Witch King, the Morgul King. So as you imagine, with a discard strategy in here, do the same thing, just get these off camera so I can just show you what I'm working with. Again, beautiful, beautiful playset. One of the nicest looking minions, I think. The Witch King, Morgul King. When you play him, you may remove a threat to take a Nazgul card from your discard pile. So huge there, and specifically in this deck, you're going to have so many options of cards to take from your discard pile. So we've got the full playset of Witch Kings. Then we do have next the full playset of Úlairë Cantëa. So this one is add a threat for each companion over 4, and then remove 2 threats to discard a possession if you can spot another Nazgul. So again, beautiful card, full play set of these. Why we're running full play sets, you don't usually see 4 copies of this guy, but with the size of the deck, we're running 4 copies of everyone. Next we have our Enquëa. 4 copies, and again, I should say 3 copies of the Enquëa you guys all know and love, the Lieutenant of Morgul, and then 1 copy of the 6th of 9 Riders, just in case we want access to that effect. And again, that's a weird thing, is some people may not know about Lord of the Rings deck building. It's not 4 per card, it's 4 per character. So you can only have 4 Úlairë Enquëas. So if we want access to 1 copy of this, we have to chop down 1 copy of one of our main Enquëas. Nice thing with this is having the extra options when you have access to your discard pile is worth having the extra options. So we've got the 3-in-1 with the Enquëa. Then we've got this guy, he's big for us as well, Nelya, the 3rd of 9. And anyone who played, you know, Forest Nazgul or so forth, you know what this guy is good for, which is replace the Fellowship's current sight with a sight from your adventure deck. So you get so much sight manipulation out of this guy. This is like a Nazgul all-star team here, basically. Then here is the expanded all-star in any deck, which is Úlairë Nertëa, the Dark Horseman. If you guys don't play expanded, you might not know as much how busted this is, but basically his effect is name a race the Free People's player cannot assign Úlairë Nertëa to skirmish companion of that race. So a typical scenario might be you have like a Frodo and a team of Gondor men or a team of elves, and you just say, well, no, he can't skirmish elves or Gondor in those contexts, and he just goes straight on your ring bearer. It gets very rough for your opponent when you when they only have 2 cultures. So they really need to get like 3 cultures down against this guy. And then if they start going to like 4 cultures, there's other cards that punish them. So it's a very punishing card that on its face looks a bit innocuous, but especially in monocultural decks, this thing is just busted. Especially if you're having alt ring bearers where it's like, hey, if I'm elves and Galadriel's my ring bearer, or I'm Gondor men and Isildur is my ring bearer, well, this is just going to eat you for breakfast. Then this, actually, guys, you'll see where this is the giveaway of the deck and what we're doing here. Úlairë Lemenya, the Dark Enemy. So this is another card from Age's End, just like Nertëa was. And that is, let me read it to you. Lemenya is strength +1 for each Nazgul possession in your discard pile. So just imagine we have a 216 card deck, how big our discard pile is going to be. There is no limit on this. So at a certain point, this guy's just going to be overwhelming everyone. And he is fierce, so he's going to get involved into 2 skirmishes. So as long as you can get him down and keep him alive, and of course he's the one you're going to keep looking to recur over and over again from the discard. And then we do have 1 copy of Otsea, the Duplicitous Specter. This is kind of just in here again for another random Nazgul to fish out. It is the set 17 masterwork, though. Just absolutely beautiful card. Love the looks of that. He just gives you a little card draw and access to another different Nazgul. Then this is another card that's on steroids in this deck, which is the Morgul Squealer. So basically what he does is he will allow you to discard this minion to play a minion from your discard pile. So like I said, we're going to be looking to recur largely the Úlairë Lemenya, but if there's other people too, we can get those. But just getting any Nazgul minion from your discard pile is absurd. So that is our Nazgul package. Now we're moving on to our other non-Nazgul minions, which is, no surprise, Gollum. We're playing the Her Sneak version, and we're playing 3 copies of Her Sneak with 1 copy of the old villain. So the old villain is kind of obvious. He's the discard one where you can discard cards from your hand, and that's going to be obviously very good with just dumping more cards in the discard. Her Sneak, what this is while Dgul is removed from the game, he has Strength +2 and Fierce. So he's going to largely be 7 Strength and Fierce. And then he has this effect, Shadow. Remove a card titled Dgul in your discard pile from the game to play this minion from your discard pile. So if you look at Dgul, basically what happens is you use him, you get him in the discard pile, and then as a shadow action, these can both be in the discard pile. And then you use the shadow action to say, I am going to remove Dgul from the game. So he's out of the discard pile, but then he jumps out of the discard pile into play. And then now that he's in play, this Dgul that we removed is giving us the +2. So basically you just have to do that once, and then you're always the 7 power and fierce. But in order to recur this, you need an additional Dgul to recur it back out of your discard pile automatically. Of course, you can still recur it with Captured by the Ring and those sorts of things, but to just recur it on its own, you do need a new Dgul every time you want to recur it. And we do have 3 copies of that. So again, same concept that we discussed with Úlairë and Enquëa with the 3-1 split. We're doing the same thing with Gollum. We've got 3 Her Sneaks and 1 old villain. And then to go along with that, of course, we do have 1 Shelob, and Shelob's a great target for sudden strike to pull out, because you can like pull out Shelob and her web, and I think you guys know how this interacts. Shelob's just a busted card, of course, and the web allows you to recur her or recur Gollum. So that is a really nice combo to have. Then moving on to our artifacts, we have only 1 artifact here, and that is the Ring of Terror. So guys, this is the only card I should say that I'm missing in the deck. I do have 2 Masterwork versions of the Ring of Terror. I need 2 more, because these are just the regular versions here on the back. They're very similar, but you can tell the Masterwork versions have these yellow sewing things, and then also have a little more cloth pattern right here. But actually Nazgul, especially artifacts, are very similar looking, but these are actually the RF versions, and these are the MW versions. So if anyone has Ring of Terror Masterwork, hit me up. I need 2 more to finish this deck. I'd really like to finish it out. So, but either way, we do run 4 Rings of Terror, and again, the effect on the Ring of Terror is just fantastic for this deck. It costs 0. It gives any Nazgul damage +1. These are hard to read, actually, the way they printed them. And obviously, a good candidate for this, for example, is your Lemenya, because then he's fierce, damage +1. Later on, he'll be overwhelming everything, but early on, you'll just be winning skirmishes with this. And then obviously, the other huge part of this is when you play this artifact, you may remove 2 threats to take any Nazgul card from your discard pile into hand. So very similar to that effect on Witch King, the Morgul King. Obviously, it costs one more threat than he does, but it's on a 0-cost artifact. So we do have a full 4 Rings of Terror. Now, next thing we have is our possessions. So this is going to take up a lot of our deck, and we're going to run through this very quick. As you may recall, possessions, why we're doing it, is for Úlairë Lemenya, getting these in our discard pile just to make him a huge, massive beast. So this is our possession stack. You'll never see this many possessions in a deck ever. And what we try to do basically here is go about half and half, so that half of it is mounts and half of it is swords, so that they match up. I'd say we're playing about 90% of the cards you even can play legally. And so you could add a few more, but we're really pushing it in terms of effectiveness at this point. So we've got a 4 full Black Flails is our first one. Beautiful card. This one is nice because it goes on any Nazgul. If it's the Witch King, then you can start doing this nice discard effect. But very good card to have around, the Black Flail. Then we have 4 Morgul Blades. What's great about the Morgul Blade is that you can bear it in addition to another hand weapon. So that can go, you can double up. Everyone knows this bad boy, very traditional. The Nazgul Sword. Get damage +1 once your opponent gets up to 3 burdens, but just a very good staple weapon, cost of 1, 2 power. Then this one is the hidden gem of the deck, which is the Sword of Minas Morgul, because again, this says bearer must be Úlairë Lemenya. Guess who? Úlairë Lemenya. He is damage +1, and exert him to discard a possession borne by a character he is skirmishing. So this one is actually a really nice recursive one to get back and pair that up. That is a surprising, one of the surprising effects in this deck that you're like, oh, that's actually a combo. Then we do have the Pale Blade for the Witch King. We're running the Shadows version, and this is the one that says you can exert him to add a burden when he wins a skirmish. So we do have full play set of that. And then we have just, this is the only one we don't play a full play setup, is the Sword of Dol Guldur, just because this is a crap one, because it's Toldea's weapon, and we don't really, we don't play Toldea. So it's basically a worse Nazgul sword that you have to pay 1 extra for. That's why we only play 2 copies of it. But it does work on any Nazgul, as opposed to Lemenya's, you know, only works on Lemenya. Then we do have our mounts, the Black Steed. Again, you guys all know the Black Steed. Only thing to be careful with this is watch and make sure you're not underground when you play this, because this cannot be used at underground sites, and we do have some underground sites. Then the Fell Beast, another nice staple Nazgul weapon, Nazgul possession. And what's nice about this is lets you cycle, discard 2 cards from your hand to play it, and it just makes your Nazgul fierce and costs 0. So a nice thing to load up your Nazgul with. Then we do have a non-foil here in the Steed of Mordor. So this is from set 12, and what this does is it gives you muster, as well as when you win a skirmish, you may draw 2. So this really just helps you cycle cards. That's what that's in here for. And back to our friend the Witch King, as you may recall, we do have a full play set of Witch King's Beast, the Fell Creature, excuse me. And so works on any Nazgul, but if it's on the Witch King, after all skirmishes have been resolved, you can exert him twice to have him participate in an additional skirmish. So this gives Witch King double fierce, for lack of a better word, or you know, allow you to have the 3rd skirmish phase. Kind of a unique effect that I don't know if that's on a lot of other cards, but a really nice, because he himself can recur cards. That's a nice card for him, of course, to choose to recur, is his Fell Beast, or of course his Pale Blade, or there's the Pale Blade, or of course his Black Flail. So any of these, depending on the situation of what you're looking to accomplish with the Witch King, you can get down either one of those two hand weapons along with that mount, and you can really make like a super Witch King that's going to just be like disgusting to face. So it's not just Lemenya that's broken. You've got Lemenya, you've got the Witch King, you've got, like I said, an expanded, you've got Nertëa is another one that you are very afraid of. So many good things can happen here. So that is the end of the weapon segment. I think we have roughly 40 plus weapons in here. So it's not as massive as you would think, considering that the deck is, over 200 cards. So it's like a 1 in 5 cards is a Nazgul possession. But again, it adds up, when you add up your discard pile, just kind of mathematically, every 5 cards you mill, you're going to mill into a weapon roughly. So just so you kind of know the math on that as you're playing. But really, you're just getting them in the discard for this bad boy. So the last bit of this then is just to cover our conditions and events that make this deck run. So doing our events first, I mentioned the Sudden Strike. Sudden Strike is an absolute expanded staple. You can spot Gollum to play a minion from your draw deck. So that's any minion, no restriction. So you can get your Lemenya, your Nertëa, your Witch King, whoever you want. Get your Gollum, get your Shelob, anything you want, no restriction. The nice thing is if you get Gollum or Shelob, you also get a possession or condition. So that's super good when you can dig out the other cards that are going to be effective for you also. So absolutely, we're running 4 of that, and anytime we see that, we're going to want to get that down. And then for Gollum recursion, of course, we're running our Captured by the Ring. Gets Gollum out of draw deck or discard pile, as well as adds a threat. You guys all know this card. Anyone who's ever played Gollum, you're running the playset of that. Moving on then to our conditions. This is another one that really shines in this deck. That's usually it's an okay card, but in this deck it's just fantastic. That is Out of Sight and Shot. So you're going for this last ability here largely, which is spot a Nazgul and discard this condition from play to play a Nazgul from your discard pile. Again, with the way you're filling up your discard pile, that's just, recur whichever Nazgul you want. So we are playing a full 4 copies of the Out of Sight and Shot. That's when I like to throw like 1 copy of in most of my Nazgul decks, but in this deck, we're going for 4. Then this is a little bit of protection for our Nazgul, which is They Feel the Precious. This is a unique card that basically, if a Nazgul is about to take a wound, remove a threat to prevent the wound. So that can be huge, to keep your Lemenya alive. Definitely good use of threats is to prevent those wounds. And kind of to go along with that, when you're preventing Madril, which is just like having you get outright discarded, we do have 1 copy of Ships of Great Draught. Why do we have this in here? We're not playing Raiders, of course, but if you've seen some of my expanded deck techs, the purpose of this is this just unrestricted lets you remove all the threats. So if you're playing against a Free People's deck who wants to have threats, you just keep initiating this to say that I am going to remove a threat to add a token here. So you'll end up with a Ships of Great Draught with 1 million tokens on it that you're not going to do anything with because you have no Raider minions. But it does allow you to basically keep the threats to 0 to prevent Madril and other antics like that. And again, that's a card that you definitely want to search out with the Sudden Strike if you're facing that deck. Then as it comes to recursion, again, as we were talking, we're into our Smeagol conditions here. So we have the Evil-smelling Fens. This is a card that is, again, just a staple of Gollum. And what it says is, plays to your support area, exert Gollum twice, and discard this condition to play a minion from your discard pile. So again, largely this is being in here for unrestricted, get any minion you want out of your discard pile. So 4 full copies of that as well. So like I said, your discard pile can just be such a resource in this deck. What happened here? Well, something got misclassified again. That is our winged mount. Somehow he ended up with our conditions, but the winged mount, of course, should have been with our possessions as we were looking at those earlier. So this is also fantastic because printed right on it is, if bearer is about to take a wound, remove a threat to prevent the wound. So that's kind of has that they feel the precious effect more or less printed on it. So a very good mount to recur if your opponent is a wounding deck. Just keep getting these guys back over and over because you want to prevent the wounds so that you can come in with these just superly broken low vitality Nazgul. So that's the winged mount. And then another staple of expanded Gollum is not easily avoided, especially a staple for massive decks, which this is. So its effect is remove 3 to take a Golem card into hand from your draw deck. So again, if Twilight's not an issue, you can grab Sudden Strike, or if you're looking specifically for a minion, you can just go straight for that minion. And then the only downside is you do have to randomly discard a card from your hand when you do that. So it costs 3 and you got to discard a card at random, which are not great effects. But for when your opponent floods the Twilight pool, this is just absolutely busted because you can use this over and over as long as you have the Twilight to remove 3. You can just start loading up on Golem cards. And then, of course, you can use it as a pump later on if you need to, and if you get extra copies down that you don't need, because this is just a condition that just sets down there. And then, like I said, when you have extra Twilight, this just really makes sure that you always are taking advantage of that Twilight flood. So this is just an absolutely fantastic expanded card, especially fantastic in a Gollum deck and in a deck that is very large. And last but not least, we have our few conditions that we're throwing in here for Gollum. Again, these are searchable. We've got 1 copy of each. Deceit, nice namesake card of the Treachery and Deceit set, the very final set 18. And this just keeps your other conditions alive. So we have this in to protect our other conditions, of which are Incited, which is just a recurring condition for when we win skirmishes. Final Strike, another protection condition to protect us from free people's special abilities. And lastly, They Stole It. Again, just another card that lets us discard cards and then wound companions. So just got 1 copy of each of those, and you can search them out to your heart's content, whatever ends up being useful to you. So yeah, guys, this has been the Nazgul weapons deck. This list is there's not a good list for this out here. This is combined from a few different lists, as well as from some of my own knowledge, as well as from other expanded deck lists. So this I think I've done a pretty good job of putting the list together, but this by no means is the be all end all, because it doesn't appear there's a exact perfect list of this out here. I just said, hey, if I'm doing Dwarven discard, absolutely this is the best deck to try out Úlairë Lemenya in. So I'm very proud of this build. Like I said, it's largely an original build from me that's combining some other resources. But then again, it's not that hard to figure out that you play every Nazgul card that talks about your discard pile, and you play 40 Nazgul weapons. So I'm not trying to give myself too much credit. But yeah, you're going to be seeing a lot of this. You're going to be seeing a lot of this. And it's just a beautiful deck. Great combination with the Dwarf discard. And then lastly, just run through our sites really quick. This is expanded, so of course we're going to be recurring the Steward's Tomb anytime your opponent lets you play out a site at their sanctuary, or if you're playing Úlairë, sorry guys, too tired at this point, the Nazgul that lets you play sites. Of course, you're going to put this on their sanctuaries, because again, wounds cannot be healed. That is included at a sanctuary, so you can prevent their sanctuary healing with the Steward's Tomb. Woody End, Remove a burden to play a Nazgul from your discard pile. Again, just another fantastic way to recur a Nazgul, literally off of your site. Buckland Homestead, beautiful foil promo here. This keeps your opponent's conditions under control. This is just a recurring shadow ability. Every time you play a Nazgul, you snipe a condition. So that is also a great one to recur and keep your opponent's free people's support area in check. And then these were the last two we looked at last time. You had a little hint of what this deck was if you saw the Moria Stairway. But we do have the Cavern Entrance, which of course is to prevent our opponent from using their skirmish special abilities, make it more likely that your minions survive. And then lastly, the Moria Stairway. This is kind of a fun one. Each character bearing a hand weapon is damage +1. So that's really great for your big Nazgul when you've got, certainly very easy to bear a hand weapon when you've got like 40 in your deck. So, or I should say, probably got 24 hand weapons in your deck. Either way, giving them all damage +1 makes those fights very lethal. So that is the Moria Stairway. Very nice for this, not an amazing sight, but very nice for this particular deck. So Moria Stairway. Well, guys, thanks for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed this deck. And like I said, super fun deck to build. Craziest deck I've ever built. Largest deck I've ever built. Most expensive deck I've ever built. Most difficult to play by no stretch of the imagination. Just trying to get everything monitored when you're playing a deck like this, where both of your sides are just monitoring all these triggers in your discard pile. Like I said, keep yourself organized. Make your stack of free peoples in the discard pile. Make your stack of shadow. Put shadow weapons in their own stack. All of that kind of stuff. Manage your deck properly, because your opponent's not going to have patience for you with sitting over there with a 216 card deck if you don't have your act together. So if you're going to play this, know what you're doing, and be a courteous opponent. So thank you everyone for watching these videos. Hopefully you enjoyed. Like I said, even if you're not into the expanded format, hopefully you can just appreciate the amazing intricacies of this deck, as well as all of the beautiful foils. So thanks for watching. Stay tuned for more videos.